The landscapes of our lives are for learning, where experience is our teacher. When we gather together and share our resources, we are destined to love and thrive. Hey, welcome back everybody. Maureen here from Landscapes for Learning, where I teach you how to know yourself for wisdom and wellness. And I give you tools and resources in mind-body health to get you there, to help you lift the heavy weight of being human. Everyone needs help lifting the heavy weight of being human. My coaching programs are called Workout Within, to find those inner resources, to take the time to stop looking out there and studying ourselves for self-realization and self-actualization. The human organism is born to, its purpose is to self-actualize. There's obstacles along the way, there's challenges to that, but that's all part of the process. That's all part of the meaning and purpose of being here. We didn't get to choose to be born. We didn't get to choose our circumstances or our parents, but we find ourselves alive and I would say alive and well, but maybe not so well. That's a relative term. But if we want to be fully alive and fully well, we have to sort of take up that cross and bear the responsibility of being here, of being human. It's not easy being human. The Buddha said life is suffering, and that is for sure. It's challenge. Speaking of challenge, today I'm going to talk about challenge, which is part 3 of my Classic Wisdom for the Modern Human, a self-study guide for wellness. There's other videos where I've talked about attention, values, self-awareness, personality, all the things that go along with understanding your mind and your body and your mind-body system and the way it works together. In the self-awareness videos, I'm going to supplement those self-awareness videos and add to them by making separate videos about interoceptive awareness and some more mind-body nervous system health information and practices. I'll be giving you information from people like Pat Ogden and Deb Dana, who shows people how to map their nervous systems. That might be a tool that might be useful for some of you. These are people who are in mental health, therapists, somatic therapists. They work with the body and the mind. Most of them are experts in trauma and chronic stress and stress management. So all of those things are really important to learn about when you're trying to understand your own mind and body. When you stop to look and to study your inner landscape, to know how your body functions, you need information. You want to be able to name things and understand and become more enlightened about, say, your autonomic nervous system and the way it functions. As a bodyguard, it's always looking out for you. It's looking for threats in the environment. It wants to keep you safe. You're going to learn things about neuroception and the polyvagal theory by Stephen Porges, which Deb Dana refers to in her polyvagal theory and therapy, which is where we map the nervous system and understand how your nervous system functions, a ventral vagal state, the sympathetic system, the parasympathetic nervous system states, and triggers and glimmers and all kinds of things that will help you understand what's happening in your everyday functioning. Okay, all of those resources are out there and you can read till the cows come home, but unless you read the book of you and understand what's happening with yourself, you have to stop, make time, commit, give effort and attention to traveling your inner landscape, I like to call it, and exploring it and learning. And that's a difficult process, but it would be helpful. I mean, you can do it without any tools, willy-nilly, whatever. Go practice yoga or meditate or try to just sit quietly and know yourself. Maybe you pick up a pen and you write, whatever. People forever have been understanding themselves and paying attention to themselves. We have the tools within us, but I try to make them explicit to you and suggest more tools that maybe you haven't thought of. And all of that nervous system health information, there's so many great resources on the internet right now. People like Irene Lyon, Andrew Huberman. I just read Dopamine Nation by Anna Lemke. So many resources out there to learn from. So I will share those with you, and I'll be pulling excerpts from their work and talking about them in the future. So today, just want to talk about challenge, okay? And why challenge? Why now? Well, challenge has been a thing since the beginning of time. It's not easy being human. One of the most challenging things about being humans is that we are aware of our own mortality. We have that prefrontal cortex, that higher brain that allows us to think symbolically, and we understand that there's a future. We take our memories from the past and project them forward, and we know there's an end to us and to this life. And I forget the guy's first name, but his last name is Solomon. And he was on the Lex Friedman podcast. He talked about his book called in Terror Management Theory. I think The Worm in the Core or something like that. I'll put it in the notes below. But it's all about, this guy Solomon loved Ernest Becker, and Ernest Becker wrote all about basically death and our own mortality and our existential fear. A lot of clients that I've come in contact with have expressed a deep existential fear. The root of some of these everyday anxieties, whether it's social anxiety or phobias, are often rooted in a deeper, more existential fear. People who feel scattered and lost and don't have a purpose and feel hopeless also, it may be rooted in existential fear of not knowing the meaning of life and the meaning and the value of who you are as a person and why you're here. And we hear a lot of this, find your passion and, blah, 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 go, live your best life and find your star and all of that. I think that instead of looking out there and trying to see what everyone else is doing and how they're finding their passion, I think the way to find who you are and your value is to be with yourself, is to understand who you are inside and out, as a mind-body system. And I think the passion's already inside you. You just haven't looked there yet. Maybe it's not out there in the world. Maybe it is. Maybe it will call to you. But who is it calling to? Who are you? And how will you, whoever you are, respond to that call? And maybe you need to learn how to listen. And what does that mean? And all that kind of stuff. Intuition, interoceptive awareness, knowing who you are. It takes self-study. It takes attention to yourself and your own conscious awareness. And then, you can think about where your attention's going, which I already talked about in previous videos, and how that's linked to values. And values are the why for any how, which is what Nietzsche said. We need a why to be able to do the hows, and a lot of times we need that why to get us through challenges. It's the thing that we are headed towards. It's the thing that makes going through the pain and the suffering and trying to overcome challenges or face them and deal with them and reckon with them or accept them, makes it worth it. There has to be something that drives us and motivates us, and to act and to face challenge. Sometimes when you train in facing challenge and understanding it and learning all about it, you start to welcome it. My landscapes for learning mindset is sort of like every experience on the landscapes of our lives is for learning, and especially the challenges. And the yogis and great sages from forever ago have always said that pain is our greatest teacher. And instead of fearing it like we do in our culture, because we're a culture of comfort and we're taught and conditioned and reinforced through repetition to seek comfort and happiness all the time, and that's the state we're always trying to get into. And so when we're in pain and we're struggling, we're suffering, we're always resisting that. We want to get out of that. We don't want to stay in it and learn about it or get comfortable being uncomfortable. We want it to end. It's funny that we want things to change when it's painful, but we want things to stay permanent when they're not painful and they're pleasurable. But you cannot live in a state of constant pleasure. Pleasure and pain are a lever, it's a balance. And a great book to read is Dopamine Nation by Anna Lemke that just came out in 2021. I just read it 2 days ago. This video is recorded August of 2021. I urge you to buy that. A lot about honesty, a lot about the pain-pleasure balance and our cultural values and why there's so much anxiety and depression and illness in this country, in this Western world where there is a high degree of progress and comfort and resources available. And why those two things go together. Illness goes up as resources kind of increase. It's an interesting read. Challenge is something that we need to train to welcome. It is an acceptance, radical honesty about pain and suffering as part of life, instead of being conditioned to run away from any inkling of pain or suffering or fear. It's not easy. It takes training and effort and practice and sacrifice and discipline, to build that discipline to be able to withstand, to be able to lift the heavy weight of being human and to stay in the present moment, in moments that we wish were different, in moments that we don't want to experience, but to kind of like stick our noses in it and stay there and just be with whatever is. That is the path to freedom. Discipline equals freedom, as Jocko Willink often says. And he's not the first to say that. All right. Ralph Waldo Emerson also said, always do what you're afraid to do. And that does give your life purpose. When I am afraid of something, that's a cue. I've trained myself now to seeing fear and challenge as a cue to look closer at that, to not run, to hold in that space and maybe do the thing that I'm afraid to do, that it should be maybe the exactly thing that I should do. Anyways, it takes training. One aspect of training that was helpful for me was Bikram yoga, where the conditions of the yoga are heat, 105 degrees, 40% humidity. You're looking at mirrors the whole time, looking at yourself. It's 90 minutes. You are challenged by basically your own suffering and your own struggle, your own thoughts, your own sensations in your body, your own emotions. You're forced to be with yourself. The practice is about you. It's not about doing the postures to the end of the posture and looking great and staying balanced physically in the posture. That's sort of like an excuse to learn more about yourself, an excuse to learn interoceptive awareness and develop that. I'm a Bikram yoga teacher, and through the years of teaching and my own practice, I notice how people like to discharge their discomfort. They distract away from it. And I watch how people manage their fear, their outer behavior. I don't know what's going on inside. Obviously, that's their subjective experience. I can only see the manifestation in their outward behaviors, and even those I don't always accurately interpret, but a lot of times we're always running for comfort. We're willing to challenge ourselves enough where we're at our threshold of what we can handle, but we don't like to go beyond that. And so we make up stories to say why we can't, or, what our sensations mean. We come up with stories, or, I don't want to hurt myself. I'm too old, or I shouldn't do that, or whatever, right? We come up with all kinds of stories about our limitations and our fears, especially, and challenge. So I love to do the yoga because I love to confront myself that way, to confront my stories, my thoughts that happen while I'm under physical duress and challenge, and how I can see through observation how that thinking directly affects my physiological state. Also, how my physiological state affects my thinking, and that back and forth of the mind-body system. I've learned a lot of bullshit about myself and all kinds of stories that I can tell and excuses I can make. And Bikram Choudhury, who created the yoga and trained me, was an excellent teacher in terms of, directing people inward to stop buying and believing their own bullshit, and to be radically, radically honest. Ironic, right, to come from any teacher, because he was human, and just because, I'm a teacher too, and I'm a parent, and I'm not always honest, but the point being, so that means I can't talk about or teach trying to live a life of integrity and to be radically honest. Yes, I can. We're all human, we're all flawed, we're not perfect. The point isn't perfection, the point is to have that why, that life of integrity, a life of honesty, because honesty is the foundation of health. And we should talk about it, and we should teach it, and we should continue to fail as models for trying over and over and over and over again in earnest to live a healthy, disciplined life. It takes an awful lot of attention and effort to do that, and to make honesty one of your most important values. But I assure you, from forever ago, the yogis knew it. In the ancient world, religious leaders, people knew it. Neuroscientists know it. Scientists know it. Psychologists know it. Freud knew it. Honesty is the foundation of human health. Okay, so a big part of challenge in this third part of the self-study guide is the challenge of being honest, to be well. And challenges include fear, insecurity, honesty, change or lack of permanence, loss, suffering, limitations, pain and discomfort, isolation and loneliness or disconnection. Lots of challenges being human. So part 3 of my self-study guide, I have courses online that can lead you through this chapter, this part 3. It's at the heart of the book. It's the most important part, I think, although they're all pretty important: attention, self-awareness, challenge, choice, and learning. But challenge is at the heart of the book. It's in the middle of the book. Because especially in our American culture, we don't welcome challenge, and we tell ourselves a lot of lies about why we don't face our challenges. But our challenges and facing them define us and define our lives, and like I said before, are foundational to our health and well-being. So I ask you to write about challenge, give you a bunch of prompts to know your why. You have to know your why, so that you can suffer more constructively. Let me see, I have a little quote here from Barbara Sullivan, famous psychologist. A successful therapeutic venture, she said, leaves the patient's outer life improved, perhaps dramatically. Ideally, the patient will find more satisfaction and pleasure than before, but instead of being tormented by meaningless pain, he will suffer pain constructively. Constructively, to create and construct life, to make something of it. That takes work and effort, yes. Things don't get constructed all by themselves. They don't magically hop together. We have to construct them. Pain is always a part of life, she says, and the wounds that have molded the person into exactly this or that shape will continue to channel his responses to pain in his unique ways. Your pain is unique to you, okay? Try not to look around the world at too many examples and see how other people manage their pain or what their pain is, or measure your pain against other people's pain. That's pointless. All you have to do is understand your own subjective experience of pain and know what that's like for you, and know how to best manage it for a life of wisdom and wellness. Vulnerability is a challenge. Challenge comes from within us. That's that big capital R resistance that Stephen Pressfield, famous writer, talks about, which I think is really interesting that Julia Cameron and Stephen Pressfield are both writers. They say, sometimes we generate our own resistance that comes from within us in the form of self-doubt, fear of not being good enough, fear of being criticized or judged by others, or other such negative thinking. Other times we resist what comes from the external world beyond our control. Things that happen in the world that we don't have any control over. Someone's death, a loss of a job, things like that. The economy, COVID-19. What life presents us with unexpectedly that we see as a problem rather than an opportunity. Yes, COVID was terrible, obviously, and nobody wanted people to die. However, it was also an opportunity. Every experience, whatever it is, good or bad, is always an opportunity for learning. And how you respond is your life. That is the construction of your life, is your response to experience. Okay, your life isn't the experiences that happen to you. Your life is how you respond to those experiences, and you have a choice. And that's the next part of the self-study guide. Part 4 is choice, and we'll get there. But even during challenge, people like to make excuses and say, you don't understand, this is death, this is illness, this is someone with no arms and legs, this is a horrific, awful trauma, whatever. Measuring the degree of pain and suffering, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Pain's pain, suffering. It's subjective experience of each individual. That being said, challenge is challenge, and there's a way to respond to challenge. You have a choice of how to respond to your life. Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, and I'm going to do a little video about that, said, he was in the concentration camps. I mean, that's pretty challenging, right? Everything can be taken from a man, he said, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. So no matter what life brings, you have a choice about how to think about it, how to receive it or resist it, and how to respond to it, to continue living whatever kind of life you want to have. And that goes back to the why, right? So your values also impact how you respond to life, what your deepest beliefs are about the purpose of your life, the meaning of your life. Challenge from within. Another challenge is surrendering and letting go. Not easy, but all of these things, surrender and letting go, you can train in them. You can train through practice. And exposure therapy is a tried and true way to overcome fear, to deal with challenge. Baby steps, little things at a time, okay? It's difficult for someone to manage their calendar, or they have a lot of medication to take, or they have a sick child, or life is busy and overwhelming, and their nervous system is frail. One small thing at a time. People who are depressed and can't get out of bed. Okay, can you sit up? Can you move one leg first and then sit up? Right? We take one baby step at a time, so that things don't seem totally overwhelming. No matter where you are, you start where you are, and there is hope. So difficult challenges, everybody has them. Resistance, letting go. Letting go of expectations is a big one. Managing expectations, that's a challenge. But I'll tell you, a lot of freedom comes from studying the expectations you hold. I have to say, I didn't realize how many. I spent probably 40 to 45 years of my life, maybe 40 years where I was conscious, 35 to 40 years, having crazy, unrealistic expectations of myself and other people. And it made me suffer. And I had no idea until I figured it out later in my yoga practice by watching my own mind and realizing, no wonder I've been disappointed. I have all these crazy expectations. Here's a little example. The weather. When you expect the weather to be good all the time, and I'm from New England, and people love to complain about the weather in the Boston area. It's a thing. Always talking about the weather. When you expect it to be beautiful all the time, of course you're going to be disappointed. Of course you're going to want things to be other than they are, right? Instead of accepting the things you can't control, controlling what you can, which is your attitude and the way you think about it and your response to it. We can't control the weather. It is what it is. And if you decide you're going to tell stories about rainy days or awful days and bad days, and you use all that language. It's a bad day. It's terrible out. Oh, it's going to be an awful day. Because it's raining? Really? It's just water falling from the sky. Seriously? See what I mean? Expectations. Check your expectations. Learn about expectations. I'll tell you who has great resources about expectations, and I learned a lot from, was Leah Babauta, zenhabits.net. He has a lot of great stuff. It's his old stuff about expectations. I think he has an ebook for free, I believe. And also he does a lot of training, like an uncertainty training. Because uncertainty is something that scares us and is hugely challenging as well. All right, the ego's desire. The ego's desire, what is that? Why is that a challenge? Because we want what we want all the time. Again, our culture trains us in this to have a big, powerful ego and to be powerful and push through our stress and go after our goals and never stop until we're sick, and ignore our sickness and ignore our body telling us, that things are out of balance and so forth. The ego goes and goes and goes. The ego compares and competes with other people. Not that comparison and competition is all bad in and of itself. It's when it becomes excessive. When the ego needs to feel that it is proud of itself. It is admired. Other people admire you, and you've won and all of that kind of thing. It's hard to let go of that sick ego that's out of control and making your life worse rather than better. It's about preferences. Another resource about this and preferences, which is related to expectations too, is Michael Singer's book. What is it called? I don't know. I'll find out and I'll put it in the description below. So that's a challenge. So in the book, I ask you to reflect and write about your resistance. What is resistance like for you? So I just told you a little bit about what it is. But again, I'm the outer resource telling you about resistance, but you have to study it in yourself. How does that function in you? Exactly. And when you write and you really take the time to study yourself in detail, you get sharper information, very, very specific to you. And it doesn't matter what other people's experiences with resistance is. It's going to be different than yours. It doesn't matter. That's none of your business. Your business is to mind your own business, know who you are, so you can take the best care of you, okay, and construct the life that you want and respond to your experiences to create your life. Exposure therapy, I already talked about. Voluntary stress is something really important to understand for building health, encouraging character. There's a difference between distress and stress, and especially like voluntary stress. I just went to the gym this morning, CrossFit, stressed myself out. Now, I wasn't in distress, okay? I was healthy stress, voluntary stress. practicing with stress, practicing with energy, practicing with resistance, practicing with the ego, practicing with my body and mind being, to understand stress, to watch how it manifests in me, watch how I respond to it, develop some skills and tools and coping strategies. That's why resistance training and exercise is good, not only for your heart and your lungs and your muscles and your bones, but for stress tolerance. It's important to understand the difference between distress and stress. And I think a lot of people, I noticed a lot of kids when I taught high school, oh, I'm stressed out, oh, I'm anxious, I'm depressed. It was probably just stress in a lot of cases. And because they hadn't been taught that stress is not all bad, it's just exists and is a thing, and we can, it's in our nervous system, and we have tools to deal with it and ways to manage it, not to make it go away all the time, but to manage it and to use it to construct our lives and to be healthy. We're just not taught those things soon enough, I don't think. Versus distress. I think a lot of people jump to the conclusion and think stress is distress. Distress is sympathetic arousal combined with negative emotion, okay? That's just a technical definition of your sympathetic nervous system responding to perceived threat, and also combined with negative emotion. Now, there's sympathetic stress that I just exercised at the gym, right? I got my heart rate up. I was responding to the challenge of doing 50 wall balls and 50 kettlebell swings and whatever, and running. It was a challenge, and I felt like dread. I always dread right before the workouts happen. I put myself voluntarily in that situation to stress myself on purpose. It's a conscious, intentional choice to be stressed. That's different from a surprise attack or someone jumping out of the alley with a knife coming at me. But the body responds similarly with sympathetic stress, a fight or flight, right? Or if it's totally overwhelming, we freeze. But it's positive emotion associated with going and working out at the gym, and not negative emotion, or not too much negative emotion. And then if it's extreme, right, that freeze response, that dorsal vagal shutdown with negative emotion would be, depressive state, seriously depressed. And that is a form of distress. So, not all stress is bad. Stress is different from distress. Little mini lesson there. Okay. So people misperceive and mislabel and misdefine challenge. You have to figure out what your challenges are exactly. Okay? Don't be careless with words. Well, I'm anxious, I'm depressed. What does that mean? How does it feel in your body, mind, thinking, feeling, emotions, sensations? What, really, really study it and try to get to know the nuances and the contours of your challenges. The more time you spend really understanding your challenges, first of all, with more insight and enlightenment, maybe they won't be as challenging. Second of all, maybe you can come up with some solutions and management tools to deal with them if you know exactly what you're dealing with, right? And then even if you went and got help from a therapist or whomever, a helping person, you can describe to them with a high level of detail what exactly you're dealing with, so that they understand more, and that two heads are better than one, and you can both, maybe deal with it exactly. So to say something like, oh, my head hurts. Okay, well, like where, how long, like inside, what's the pain like, right? So your challenges need to be defined clearly and specifically using language. Speaking of which, I have a journaling program that targets exactly that. That's on my website. You can check it out, landscapesforlearning.com. I think it's on the coaching page, or I'm not sure where it is, but it's a journaling program. Exposure therapy. Safe space mentality in schools is absolutely ridiculous. Putting language in a syllabi, telling students that they shouldn't be uncomfortable when they learn is the opposite of exposure therapy. It's ridiculous. It's the worst thing we can do. We need to be honest and straightforward, candid with kids, and tell them, this is going to hurt, honey, but I'm here to help you, and here's some coping skills, and here's how we learn. This is how learning happens, right? Providing them safety, a visceral sense of safety. Teachers need to know how that works with their own nervous system and other people's nervous systems. But we don't know these things. Higher ed is preparing teachers to teach content, and we're teaching mindfulness. Oh, sit still, honey, you'll be fine, and just breathe. No, that's not enough. It's like we're really doing some harm with the best intentions. And these are nice people, and they have good intentions, but they're misguided. And yeah, that's a video for another day. Getting comfortable with discomfort just happens through practice. Today we were doing a workout, and there's a time cap on it, 25 minutes. I think I finished 24 minutes, something like that. And I turned around to see the woman next to me in the square, and she's pausing before finishing her wall balls, and we're getting down 10 seconds, 9, 8, and I was like, just do 2 more, just 2 more. Like, pick the ball up and try to do 1 more instead of just 10 seconds, and let the clock run out. And like, who cares? Why does that matter? I think it matters because if you can train in the habit of, pushing a little bit further than you think you can, it's part of your mind. Body can probably do it. No matter how hard your heart is racing, no matter how tired you are, you can probably do 2 more wall balls. It probably takes 2 seconds, 3 seconds at most. Most people are capable of doing that, I think. Why should you do it? It's to change that mental pattern of like giving up, right? That's the discipline. That's the little bit more. That's the exposure therapy. A little bit more. 1 more baby step. And maybe next time you're building distress tolerance. You're building your physiological and psychological strength to deal with stress. That's why it matters. All right. The next section is on choice. That'll be the next video. This video is really way longer than I wanted it to be, but I hope you got something out of it. I did mention a lot of resources, Michael Singer, a bunch of others. Hopefully I can remember. I'll have to rewatch the video, and I'll list them all below, because that's my purpose, is to share resources, my own learning, my own wisdom, my own resource here, the resources on my website, the resources I've created, and all of the other resources that I mentioned from really, really smart people in the field, and who can be very helpful. And I hope that you follow them and learn from them just as much as you learn from me. But what I really hope is that you learn from you. Self-study for self-realization, for wisdom and wellness. You have to take the time. Once the video is over, find the time to take one thing and study it about yourself, right? Look within, be with yourself. And I think my courses help to kind of chunk that out for you. You can concentrate on learning about your attention, for instance. You can concentrate on figuring out or finding out and exploring more about your mind and how that works in your body. And through the journaling program, understand even more about your mind, your sensations, your emotions through writing. Challenge, reflecting on the challenges. There's no shortage of opportunities to study your own challenges, because we all have them all the time. Relationship challenges, health challenges, challenge with kids, challenge with jobs, right? Challenge with wanting to change a different habit, or reassessing our values and where am I going, and what is my purpose, and what do I want for my future, and things like that. So there's always challenges to be had, and use those challenges as opportunities to learn more about yourself and to hone your skills in self-study and reflection. Writing's a great tool, sitting by yourself, giving yourself some quiet time, however you do that, just to be. And maybe when you're really bored in a meeting, or whatever. You know, you can sit amongst a bunch of people, and, you know, if you're not there for them and need to be there with them, say you're in the audience and it's a boring work meeting or something, and, you know, you've had enough and it's done, reflect and be with you, right? And nobody will know it. And maybe use the breath, concentrate on nice slow inhale and even longer slow exhale to relax your shoulders and just to be still and be with what is without judgment, right? And then later, if you want to reflect on things before you go to bed, write in a journal, great. Find what works for you. I have tools and suggestions. You know, there's a lot of them out there, and all the resources that I share will have lots and lots of other tools and resources that you can use to know yourself, so you can take the best care of you. And when you're better, everybody else is better. And when you get stronger and more flexible to lift the heavy weight of being human, you can help other people do the same through your example. All right, take care until the next video.